The alarm screamed through the communication center on Haven's Rest. Captain Hyunwoo pressed his hands against the glass window, watching the sky turn orange with fire. Ships descended from the clouds like metal locusts, their weapons carving lines of destruction across the colony below. Buildings that had taken years to construct vanished in seconds. The gardens where children played yesterday were now craters filled with smoke. "They're not responding to any signals," his communications officer shouted over the chaos. "They're just firing." Hyunwoo had commanded the diplomatic vessel Eternal Dawn for 5 years. He had negotiated trade disputes and resolved territorial disagreements. He believed in words over weapons, but words meant nothing to the ships currently destroying everything he had sworn to protect. The attack lasted 4 hours. When it ended, Haven's Rest was silent except for the sound of burning metal and collapsing structures. Hyunwoo walked through streets he no longer recognized. Bodies lay where they had fallen. A child's toy floated in a puddle mixed with rainwater and blood. He picked it up with shaking hands. 200,000 people had lived on Haven's Rest. Now the scanners registered less than 300 survivors. 3 light-years away on Galactic Council Station, Nexus Prime Ambassador Ji-won stood before the council chambers. The room was massive, built to remind lesser species of their insignificance. 17 different alien species sat in elevated seats, looking down at the speaking platform where Ji-won waited. She had requested an emergency session. The attack on Haven's Rest was not an isolated incident. 2 other human colonies had been destroyed in the same day. Over 500,000 humans were dead. "The Council acknowledges the unfortunate incident," Councillor Thalvek said. His reptilian features showed no emotion. However, preliminary investigation reveals those planets contained resources critical to Council interests. The human colonists were given adequate time to evacuate. Ji-won's hands clenched at her sides. "Adequate time? Your ships opened fire immediately. Families were killed in their homes. Children died in their schools. We provided a full 30 seconds of warning broadcast," another counselor added. "That meets minimum protocol requirements, 30 seconds. Ji-won had practiced her speech for 3 days. She had prepared logical arguments and emotional appeals. She had brought evidence and testimony. Now she realized none of it mattered. "We demand justice," she said, her voice steady despite the rage building inside her. "We demand reparations for the families destroyed. We demand accountability for this massacre." Councillor Thalvex made a sound that might have been laughter. Massacre is a strong word for a legitimate resource acquisition. However, the Council recognizes human distress. "We are prepared to offer compensation." Ji-won felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps they would listen. Perhaps this tragedy could lead to meaningful change. "The Council will provide payment equivalent to 50,000 credits. Thalvex continued. The hope died. 50,000 credits would not buy a single shuttle. It would not build one house. It would not bring back one child. "That's insulting," Ji-won said. "That is generous," Thalvex replied. "Consider it carefully, Ambassador. The Council has been patient with humanity's expansion into Council space. Continued protest may result in sanctions against all human worlds." Ji-won looked around the chamber. Some counselors looked uncomfortable. Most looked bored. One was checking a data pad, not even paying attention. "Is this how the Council maintains peace?" Ji-won asked. "Through threats and intimidation?" "The Council maintains peace through strength and order," Thalvex said. "Minor species like humanity must learn their place in the galactic hierarchy. Accept our generous offer and be grateful we do not demand payment for the resources your colonists consumed." The session ended. Ji-won walked through the pristine corridors of Nexus Prime in a daze. Around her, aliens from dozens of species conducted business. Ships docked and departed. Life continued as if nothing had happened. As if 500,000 humans had not been murdered for resources. She found a communication terminal and contacted Earth. Commander Dae-jung appeared on the screen. He led the United Defense Fleet, humanity's military arm. His face was carved from stone. "They offered 50,000 credits," Ji-won told him. "They called it generous." Dae-jung was quiet for a long moment. "What are our orders?" "The Council threatened sanctions if we retaliate. They believe we're too weak to respond militarily. Are we accepting their assessment?" Ji-won thought about the bodies on Haven's Rest. She thought about families who would never be whole again. She thought about the casual cruelty in Councillor Thalvex's voice. "No," she said. "But we need time."
Can you give us time?
How much time? As much as you can. Back on Haven's Rest, Captain Hyunwoo organized the survivors. They had no homes, limited supplies, and no hope of rescue from the council. But they had each other. They buried their dead in neat rows, marking each grave with stones. Hyunwoo read names until his voice gave out, then read more. At the mass grave for those they could not identify, he placed the toy he had found. It was a small thing, barely significant, but it represented every life stolen by the council's arrogance. A young woman approached him. Her name was Hana. She had lost her entire family. "Will we make them pay?" she asked. Hyunwoo looked at the grave stretching across the scorched field. "Yes, when? When we're ready. When we're strong enough that they cannot ignore us or threaten us or dismiss us. How long will that take?" Hyunwoo did not know, but he knew humanity would not forget. Could not forget. News of the attack spread across human space. Every colony, every station, every ship received the same information. The council had killed 500,000 humans and offered an insult as compensation. They had threatened humanity with worse if humans dared to respond. On Earth, in the halls of government, leaders met in secret. On Mars, engineers began designing new weapons. On Europa, scientists studied captured council technology. On Titan, soldiers trained for wars they hoped would never come but knew were inevitable. The council believed humanity would accept their place. They believed fear would keep humans obedient. They believed their own propaganda about human weakness. They were wrong about all of it. In the council chambers, Thalvex celebrated. He had handled the human problem efficiently. His colleagues praised his firm approach. The council's mining operations on the former human colonies had already begun. Resources flowed to council worlds, enriching the powerful while the weak suffered. "What if the humans retaliate?" a junior aide asked. Thalvex laughed. "With what? Their fleet is a joke. Their technology is primitive. Their resolve is weak. Humans talk about peace and justice, but they lack the courage to actually fight. They will protest, then accept, then forget. It is the way of lesser species." The aide did not look convinced, but said nothing more. Across the galaxy, humanity watched and waited. Ships moved into position. Resources were gathered. Scientists worked impossible hours. Soldiers said goodbye to families. Diplomats maintained pleasant facades while preparing for war. Ambassador Jiwon remained on Nexus Prime, smiling at council members who had dismissed her pleas. She attended diplomatic functions and made polite conversation. She played the role of the defeated representative of a defeated species. Inside, she counted the days until humanity's response. Inside, she remembered every face in the council chambers. Inside, she prepared for the moment when the galaxy would learn what happened when you pushed humanity too far. The council had made their choice. Now humanity would make theirs. 6 months passed. The council watched humanity with careful eyes, waiting for the retaliation that never came. Human ships continued their routes. Human diplomats attended council functions. Human colonies rebuilt what they could and mourned what they could not replace. The council relaxed. They had been right about humanity after all. They could not have been more wrong. Deep beneath the surface of Earth, in a facility that officially did not exist, Admiral Subin coordinated the largest military operation in human history. The room was filled with screens showing star maps, fleet positions, and countdown timers. Officers worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. "Status report," Subin said. "All fleets are in position," her tactical officer replied. "Ghost protocol weapons are loaded and ready. Strike teams have confirmed their positions in all 12 target systems." Subin studied the displays. 12 systems, 37 council military installations, hundreds of targets that needed to be hit simultaneously if the plan was to work. One mistake and the council would have time to respond. Time to bring their full military might against humanity. There could be no mistakes. "How long until we're detected?" she asked. "Current stealth systems are holding. We estimate 48 hours before council sensors might pick up anomalies." 48 hours. The attack was scheduled for 36 hours from now. Timing was everything. In another part of the complex, Dr. Tae-hyun examined the quantum disruption weapon that would change galactic warfare. It looked simple, almost elegant. A cylinder no larger than his arm. Filled with technology the council did not believe humans capable of developing. "Will it work?" his assistant asked. Tae-hyun smiled. "It already has. We tested it on captured Council shield generators. Complete failure within 3 seconds of activation. The Council thinks their shields are impenetrable. They are, against conventional weapons. But quantum disruption does not attack the shields. It attacks the space the shields occupy. The shields simply cease to exist in any meaningful sense. His assistant looked worried. If we use these weapons, we change everything. The Council will know we have technology they do not. Good, Taehyun said. Let them know. Let them understand they are not the only advanced species in the galaxy. Above the Earth, Lieutenant Yuna prepared her team for insertion. They were the best soldiers humanity had produced. Fast, skilled, and absolutely committed to their mission. They had spent months infiltrating Council space, mapping bases, identifying weak points, and preparing escape routes. Remember the primary objective, Yuna told her squad. We are not there to fight. We are there to disable communications and ensure the Council cannot coordinate a response. Get in, complete the mission, get out. What if we encounter resistance? One soldier asked. Then we adapt. But our orders are clear. Minimize casualties where possible. This is not about killing Council soldiers. This is about making the Council understand they cannot kill us without consequences. The soldier nodded. They all understood. Some had lost family on Haven's Rest. Others had friends who died on the other destroyed colonies. They wanted revenge, but they would settle for justice. Across Council space, Merchant Captain Min-ho docked at another trading station. He had made this route dozens of times in the past 6 months. The Council customs officers barely looked at his cargo anymore. He was just another human trader, trying to make a living despite the tension between his people and the Council. The customs officer waved him through. Min-ho smiled and thanked him. Then he walked to a maintenance corridor and planted a small device behind a power conduit. It would activate in exactly 36 hours, disrupting the station's sensor network for approximately 4 minutes. 4 minutes was all the fleet would need to pass through this sector undetected. Min-ho had planted 47 similar devices across Council space. Other civilian traders had planted hundreds more. The Council never suspected that every human merchant ship was also an intelligence vessel. Back on Earth, the governments of humanity held their final meeting before the operation began. There were no disagreements, no debates. Every nation, every colony, every faction had unified behind a single goal. The Council would answer for what they had done. Are we certain about this path? The European Union representative asked. Once we begin, there is no going back. The Council will never see us as a minor species again. They already proved they do not see us as people. The African Coalition representative replied. They see us as obstacles to resources, as problems to be solved with violence. The question is not whether we should respond, the Asian Alliance representative said. The question is whether we can live with ourselves if we do not. The vote was unanimous. On Nexus Prime, Ambassador Jiwon attended another diplomatic function. Council members congratulated themselves on resolving the human situation. Some even expressed sympathy for the lost colonists, though their sympathy came 6 months too late and cost them nothing. Councillor Thalvex approached her with a glass of some exotic drink. Ambassador, I hope you are settling into your new reality. The Council values stable relationships with all species, even minor ones. Jiwon accepted the drink and smiled. I am learning much about the Council's values. Excellent. There are many opportunities for species who understand their place in the galactic order. I understand perfectly, Jiwon said, and she did. She understood the Council saw humanity as tools or obstacles, never as equals. She understood that peace with the Council was only possible through submission or strength. She understood that in 36 hours everything would change. Thalvex moved on to other guests. Jiwon poured her drink into a nearby plant and checked her communicator. A single message waited. All pieces are in position. She allowed herself a small smile. In orbit above Haven's Rest, Captain Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of a new ship. It was not as large as Council vessels, but it was fast and well armed. The crew consisted entirely of survivors from the attack. They had trained together, bled together, and prepared for this moment together. Crew status? Hyunwoo asked. All stations ready, Captain. Weapons charged. Engines at full capacity. We are ready to bring our people home. Hyunwoo knew they could not bring the dead back, but they could ensure those deaths meant something. They could ensure the Council never again dismissed human life as insignificant. Mark the time, he ordered. 36 hours until operation begins. Get some rest. All of you. We will need our strength. The crew dispersed. Hyunwoo remained on the bridge looking down at the planet below. The graves were still visible from orbit, small marks on the scarred surface. 500,000 humans rested there. 500,000 reasons why humanity could not accept the Council's insult as justice. He thought about Thalvex's words during the Council session. Learn your place in the galactic hierarchy. Humanity had learned. Their place was not beneath the Council. Their place was wherever they chose to stand, regardless of what aliens believed. The countdown continued. Across human space, thousands of ships moved into final positions. Millions of personnel made last preparations. Weapons that the Council did not know existed powered up for the first time in combat conditions. Intelligence networks activated. Strike teams checked their equipment one last time. And in the Council chambers, in the military command centers, in the comfortable offices where Council members planned the exploitation of lesser species, no one suspected what was coming. The Council had made assumptions about humanity. They assumed fear would control humans. They assumed human technology was primitive. They assumed human will would break under pressure. They assumed mercy meant weakness. In 36 hours, the Council would learn the cost of their assumptions. Admiral Subin looked at the countdown timer. She thought about the lives already lost. She thought about the lives that would be lost in the coming operation. She thought about the galaxy that would exist after humanity showed its true strength. Final systems check, she ordered. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier. We get one chance at this. We will not waste it. The response came back from dozens of locations. Ready. Humanity had been silent for 6 months. Silent while the Council celebrated. Silent while they rebuilt. Silent while they prepared. The Council mistook that silence for acceptance. Soon the galaxy would hear humanity's true answer. The Council Military Command Center on Vex Prime was quiet. Night shift officers monitored displays showing peaceful sectors. Trade routes flowed normally. Communications were routine. Everything was as it should be. Then space itself seemed to tear open. Human ships emerged from quantum jumps in 12 systems simultaneously. Not the small diplomatic vessels or merchant ships the Council expected. These were warships, hundreds of them, appearing exactly where Council defenses were weakest. Alert! Unknown fleet detected, the sensor officer screamed. No multiple fleets. Signatures are... They're human! The base commander rushed to the displays. Impossible. Humans did not have the technology for coordinated quantum jumps. Humans did not have ships this large. Humans did not have the military capability to threaten Council installations. The displays proved otherwise. Fleet Admiral Jin Seok stood on the bridge of the human flagship Retribution. Around him, tactical displays showed all 12 simultaneous operations unfolding. Years of planning came down to these next few hours. All fleets execute primary strike, he ordered. The human ships opened fire. Council vessels that had patrolled without concern suddenly found themselves facing weapons they did not understand. Quantum disruption warheads struck Council shields and the shields simply vanished. Not destroyed but erased from existence. Secondary weapons tore through now defenseless hulls. In the first 30 seconds, the Council lost 17 military vessels. Impossible, the Vex Prime commander shouted. Their weapons should not be able to penetrate our shields. But they did. Again and again, human weapons proved devastatingly effective against technology the Council had believed superior. Ships that had terrorized lesser species for generations became debris fields. Commander Bo-Ra piloted the stealth destroyer Silent Vengeance through the chaos. Her ship was smaller, designed for a specific purpose. While the main fleet engaged military targets, her mission was the Council's communication network. Target the relay stations, she ordered. Precision strikes only. We need them disabled, not destroyed. Her weapons officer worked with surgical precision. Each shot took out communication arrays without causing complete destruction. The Council would be able to repair them eventually, but for the next several hours they would be blind and silent. Across Council space, other stealth ships completed similar missions. The Council's vast communication network, built over centuries, went dark in minutes. Military commanders could not coordinate. Political leaders could not issue orders. Panic spread faster than information. On the ground, Colonel Wu Jin led his teams through a Council prison facility. Intelligence reports indicated the facility held prisoners from dozens of species, all captured during Council resource acquisition operations. "Move fast, stay quiet," Wu Jin ordered. "Security forces are confused, but they will respond eventually." His team moved through corridors with practiced efficiency. They had trained for this mission for months. Every turn, every door, every security checkpoint was memorized. They found the prisoners in conditions that made Wu Jin's stomach turn. Cramped cells, minimal food, no medical care. These were not criminals. These were families who had been in the way of Council expansion. "We are here to free you," Wu Jin told them. "Follow us and stay close." An elderly alien looked at him with confusion. "You are human. Why would you help us?" "Because the Council hurt us too," Wu Jin replied. "And because no one deserves to be treated like this." They evacuated 2,000 prisoners in 40 minutes. As they left, Wu Jin activated transmitters that would broadcast evidence of the prison's conditions to every species in the galaxy. The Council had committed crimes. Now everyone would know. Back in space, Fleet Admiral Jin Seok watched tactical displays with satisfaction. The operation was proceeding better than expected. Council forces were confused, disorganized, and ineffective. Human casualties were minimal, but he knew the hardest part was still coming. "Open a channel to Nexus Prime," he ordered. "It is time to deliver our message." On Nexus Prime, the Council had finally realized they were under attack. Emergency sessions were called. Military advisors rushed to command centers, and then every display in the station activated simultaneously, showing the face of a human admiral. "Members of the Galactic Council," Jin Seok said, "6 months ago your forces destroyed 3 human colonies. You killed over 500,000 of our people. You offered insult as compensation. You threatened us with worse if we dared to respond." Council members watched in shock. How is this human broadcasting directly into their most secure facilities? "Today we respond," Jin Seok continued. "We have disabled your military infrastructure in 12 systems. We have liberated thousands of prisoners you held illegally. We have exposed your crimes to the entire galaxy. And we have done this in less than 4 hours. Counselor Thalvex found his voice. "This is an act of war. We will destroy your entire species for this." "With what?" Jin Seok asked calmly. "Your fleets are crippled. Your communications are down. Your allies are questioning their association with you. You believed humanity was weak. You were wrong." The broadcast showed images from Haven's Rest, bodies in the streets, burning buildings, children's toys in the rubble. Then it showed images from the Council prison facility, families locked in cages, species that had been listed as extinct, still suffering under Council control. "We did not start this conflict," Jin Seok said, "but we will finish it. You have 48 hours to respond to our demands. Return all territories taken from minor species in the last century. Provide full reparations to every family you harmed. Submit to independent investigation of all Council military operations, and guarantee with enforcement mechanisms that no species will be targeted for resources again." "Never," Thalvex shouted. "The Council does not bow to demands from inferior species." Jin Seok's expression did not change. "Then you will learn what humanity does to those who call us inferior. You have 48 hours. The transmission ended. Silence filled the Council chambers. Commander Bora received new orders. The Council had not immediately agreed to demands. Phase 2 would begin. Target their mining operations, the orders read. Disable only. Show them we can reach any asset they possess. Her ship glided through space like a ghost. Council sensors, damaged from the initial attack, could not track her. She positioned above a major mining facility that was processing resources from the destroyed human colony. One precisely aimed shot disabled the facility's power core. No casualties, just a very expensive operation suddenly offline. Across the 12 systems, other human ships completed similar missions. Council trade stations went dark. Processing facilities shut down. Resource extraction operations halted. The Council's economy began to feel the pressure, and through it all, humanity broadcast evidence of Council crimes. Species who had believed themselves safe from Council aggression learned otherwise. Images of prison facilities, destroyed colonies, and forced labor operations spread through galactic networks. 3 Council member species immediately sent ambassadors to discuss withdrawing from the Council. 5 more demanded emergency reforms. The political structure that had held for centuries began to crack. Captain Hyunwoo brought his ship into orbit above Haven's Rest. From here, he could see the graves of his people. The operation had been successful. The Council was reeling, but it did not bring the dead back. "Sir, message from Fleet Command," his communications officer said. "The Council is requesting negotiation talks." After 4 hours, Hyunwoo laughed bitterly. 6 months ago we begged for talks. They gave us insults. Now they want negotiation? Orders, sir? Hyunwoo thought about the toy he had found in the rubble, about the child who would never play with it again, about the 500,000 humans who deserved justice. Tell Fleet Command the 48-hour deadline stands. The Council can talk all they want, but until they meet our demands, we continue operations. On Nexus Prime, Ambassador Ji-won walked through corridors filled with panicking Council members. Some ran to ships trying to evacuate. Others huddled in groups arguing about responses. None of them paid attention to her. She had been invisible to them for 6 months. Now humanity was impossible to ignore. Councillor Vextar, one of the few moderates, approached her. "Ambassador, please. Surely we can discuss this. Violence helps no one." "I tried discussion 6 months ago," Ji-won replied. "Your colleague called our deaths an unfortunate incident and offered us 50,000 credits. Tell me, Councillor, how much is a council life worth?" Vextar had no answer. "I thought so," Ji-won said. "You have 48 hours to decide if council pride is worth more than council survival. Choose wisely." She left him standing in the corridor, just as lost as the species the council had exploited for generations. Fleet Admiral Jin Seok reviewed the operation reports. Phase 1 had exceeded expectations. Council military capacity was reduced by 40%. Communications remained disrupted. Economic pressure was building. Political cohesion was collapsing. "Status of our forces?" he asked. "Minimal casualties, sir. 3 ships damaged, currently undergoing repairs. No facilities lost. All objectives achieved." Jin Seok nodded. The Council had believed humanity weak. They had learned otherwise. But this was only the beginning. The real test would come when the Council decided. The Council chambers shook, not from structural damage but from weapons tests. Human ships positioned near Nexus Prime fired demonstration shots into empty space every hour. The quantum disruptions created shockwaves that rattled the massive station, reminding everyone inside that humanity could destroy them at any moment. Councillor Thalvex gripped his seat as another tremor passed through the floor. Around him, representatives from 17 species argued with increasing desperation. The emergency session had lasted for 12 hours. No consensus had emerged. "We must respond with force," the Krethian delegate demanded. "We cannot allow a minor species to dictate terms to the Council." "With what force?" Councillor Vexistar replied wearily. "Our fleets are crippled. Our communication networks are still being repaired. Every hour we delay, more of our economic infrastructure goes offline." "Then we negotiate," another councillor suggested. "The Council does not negotiate from weakness," Thalvik shouted. "If we bow to human demands, every minor species in the galaxy will see us as vulnerable. Our authority will collapse." Admiral Subin watched the Council's debates through intelligence feeds. Human agents had infiltrated Nexus Prime months ago, installing surveillance throughout the station. She could see every argument, every moment of panic, every crack in the Council's unity. "They are fracturing faster than we predicted," her intelligence officer noted. "Good," Subin replied. "Keep the pressure steady." Another demonstration shot in 20 minutes. "Make sure it is close enough to shake their conference rooms but far enough to cause no actual damage." "Yes, Admiral." Subin studied the faces of the Council members. Some looked angry. Others looked terrified. A few looked thoughtful, perhaps realizing for the first time that their system of exploitation could not continue. The demonstration shot fired precisely on schedule. Through the surveillance feeds, Subin watched councillors flinch as their chambers trembled. Some dove under their desks. Thalvex maintained his composure, but his scales had lost their usual vibrant color. Ambassador Ji-won stood in a private meeting room with Councillor Vextar. He had requested this conversation, one of the few council members willing to speak directly with her. "Your species has made your point," Vextar said. "We understand you have military capacity we did not anticipate, but surely continued violence serves no one." "We tried peace," Ji-won replied. "We begged for justice. We were offered insults, Now you want peace again because you are losing. What do you want from us? Surely not the complete dismantling of the council. Ji-won pulled up a display showing the demands. We want accountability. We want reparations. We want systemic changes that prevent this from happening to other species. And yes, we want the council as it currently exists to end. Vextar looked shocked. You want to destroy an institution that has maintained galactic peace for centuries? Peace? Ji-won's laugh was bitter. Is this what you call peace? We found evidence of 47 species the council has exploited in the last century alone. 12 of those species are extinct, not because of natural causes, but because the council decided their worlds contained valuable resources. She pulled up images from the liberated prison facilities. These are not criminals. These are families, children, elders, all imprisoned because they lived on land the council wanted. Is that peace, counselor? Vextar looked at the images with obvious discomfort. I did not know the extent of these operations. Then you were willfully blind. The evidence was always available. You chose not to look because it was convenient to believe in council righteousness. Another tremor shook the room. Vextar steadied himself against the table. How long will you continue these demonstrations? He asked. Until you agree to our demands, or until we decide demonstrations are insufficient and move to more direct action. You would actually destroy Nexus Prime? Ji-won met his eyes. Would you have believed 6 months ago that we could cripple your military in 4 hours? Stop asking what we are capable of. Start asking what you are willing to do to prevent finding out. In the lower levels of Nexus Prime, human intelligence operative Sora moved through maintenance tunnels. Her mission was to gather evidence of council decision-making for the inevitable historical record. Future generations needed to understand exactly how the council had responded to humanity's ultimatum. She planted recording devices in conference rooms and private offices. The council's own security was too focused on external threats to notice internal infiltration. It had always been their weakness, assuming no one would dare operate inside their most secure facility. Sora's communicator buzzed. New orders, extract if necessary. The council was considering a desperate military response that might put operatives at risk. She made her way toward the extraction point, planting her last few devices along the way. As she moved, she passed windows overlooking the docking bays. Council member species were evacuating, their ships departing in a steady stream. The mighty Galactic Council was abandoning its own headquarters. Captain Hyunwoo received updated orders from Fleet Command. Some council member species were attempting to organize a counterattack. Intelligence indicated 6 species still loyal to the council were gathering their remaining military assets. How many ships? Hyunwoo asked. Approximately 200 vessels consolidating in the Thalic sector. 200 ships was still a significant force, even with damaged coordination and communication. But it was also an opportunity. Send word to Admiral Jin Seok. The council is attempting to reorganize. Recommend we demonstrate the difference between their capabilities and ours. The message went through secured channels. Within an hour, human fleets moved to intercept the council force, but not to fight. To show them what fighting humanity actually meant, the council ships gathered in formation, preparing for battle. Then human ships arrived, not in front of them, but surrounding them. Above, below, and on all sides, the council force found themselves completely encircled. Fleet Admiral Jin Seok opened a communication channel. Council forces, power down your weapons. This is not a battle. This is a lesson. We will not surrender. The council fleet commander responded. We are not asking you to surrender. We are showing you that if we wanted you destroyed, you would already be debris. Look at your tactical displays. Count the ships around you. Calculate your survival odds if we opened fire. Silence followed. The council commander was doing exactly that calculation. You have courage, Jin Seok continued. But courage without wisdom is just pride, and pride killed 500,000 humans. Do not let it kill you too. Return to your worlds. Tell your leaders that humanity does not want galactic war. We want justice. There is a difference. The council ships held formation for 10 minutes. Then one by one, they powered down weapons and began withdrawal. No shots were fired. No lives were lost. But the message was clear. Humanity could have destroyed them and chose mercy instead. Back in the council chambers, news of the fleet's withdrawal caused chaos. Some counselors accused their military of cowardice. Others recognized it as wisdom. The debates grew more heated. Counselor Thalvex tried to maintain control. We must show strength. If we concede to human demands, we show weakness to the entire galaxy. We have already shown weakness, Counselor Vexitar replied. We showed it when we attacked defenseless colonies. We showed it when we imprisoned innocent species. We showed it when we believed brutality was strength. Humanity is not showing us weakness. They are showing us what real strength looks like. Traitor, Thalvex screamed. You side with humans against your own kind. I side with justice against tyranny, Vextar said calmly. Something we should have done centuries ago. The chamber erupted in argument. Some counselors supported Vextar. Others stood with Thalvex. The unified council that had ruled the galaxy was splitting before everyone's eyes. Another tremor shook the station. This one was stronger than before. Admiral Subin had authorized increased demonstration strength. The message was clear. Time was running out. Ambassador G1 watched the council tear itself apart through live feeds. She felt no satisfaction in their suffering, only grim determination. This was not about revenge. It was about ensuring no other species would face what humanity had faced. Her communicator showed a message from Earth. Council division reaching critical point. Multiple species requesting separate negotiations. Recommend preparing final ultimatum. G1 composed her response carefully. The next few hours would determine not just humanity's future, but the future of every minor species in the galaxy. 24 hours remained on the deadline. The council chamber shook with another demonstration, and in conference rooms throughout Nexus Prime, council members began to realize that their choice was not between pride and submission. It was between evolution and extinction. Counselor Vextar approached Ambassador G1 one last time. If we agree to your demands, what happens to the council? That depends on the council, G1 replied. Are you willing to become what you always claimed to be? A force for peace and cooperation? Or will you continue to be an instrument of exploitation? And if we choose wrong? G1 gestured to the window, where human warships maintained their positions. Then humanity will make the choice for you. Another tremor shook the station. The countdown continued, and the galaxy held its breath. The deadline passed at midnight, Galactic Standard Time. The council chambers were empty except for 7 species representatives. 10 species had withdrawn from the council entirely. 3 were still debating internally. The 17-member coalition that had ruled the galaxy for centuries was collapsing. Counselor Vexitar stood at the speaker's platform, his voice tired but clear. On behalf of the remaining council members, we accept the human demands. All territories will be returned. Reparations will be paid. Independent investigations will proceed. And the Galactic Council as it existed is hereby dissolved. The words echoed in the massive chamber. Centuries of history ended with a single sentence. Ambassador G1 listened from her quarters on Nexus Prime. She felt no triumph, only exhaustion and relief. The war was over. The real work was beginning. 6 months after the deadline, Captain Hyunwoo stood on Haven's Rest again. But the scarred surface had changed. Construction teams from a dozen species worked to rebuild. Not just human teams, but volunteers from the very species the Council had once oppressed. Captain, the memorial is ready for your inspection, his first officer said. They walked to the site where the mass graves had been. Instead of graves, there was now a garden. 500,000 trees, one for each life lost. At the center stood a monument with every name carved in stone. At the base, carefully preserved in crystal, was the child's toy Hyunwoo had found in the rubble. We remember. The inscription read, We rebuild. We never forget. Representatives from 40 different species stood around the memorial. Some had lost their own people to council aggression. Others came to show support. All understood that this place represented more than human loss. It represented the cost of allowing power without accountability. An elderly Threxian approached Hyunwoo. Her species had been nearly extinct, reduced to a few thousand prisoners in council facilities. Human forces had freed them during the initial strike. Thank you, she said simply. My grandchildren will grow up free because of what your species did. Hyunwoo did not know what to say. We only did what anyone should do. We stood up to bullies. No, the Threxian replied. You did what few have the courage to do. You risked everything for justice, not just for yourselves, but for all of us. That is rare in this galaxy. On Earth, Admiral Subin transitioned from military command to diplomatic service. The new Galactic Assembly needed experienced voices, and she had proven her capability in the most demanding circumstances imaginable. The Assembly was different from the Council. Every species had an equal voice regardless of size or military strength. Decisions required consensus, not domination. It was messy, slow, and frustrating. It was also fair. Some days I miss the clarity of military operations, Subin told her aide. At least in battle, you know who the enemy is. And now? Now the enemy is our own worst instincts: fear, greed, the desire for power. We are trying to build something that goes against millions of years of evolutionary behavior. It is harder than any war. Dr. Taehyun's quantum disruption technology was shared with allied species as promised. The technology that had broken Council military dominance became a tool for collective defense. No single species would ever again have overwhelming military advantage. Some human politicians objected. We should keep this technology for ourselves, they argued. It is our edge. An edge that cuts both ways, Taehyun replied. If we hoard technology for advantage, we become what the Council was. Better that everyone has the capability to defend themselves. The Assembly agreed. Defensive technology was shared freely. Offensive weapons research was regulated collectively. It was not a perfect system, but it was better than what had existed before Lieutenant Yuna left active military service and joined the new Assembly Security Force. The ASF's mission was to investigate and prevent exploitation of minor species. They had authority to operate in any system and inspect any facility. Her first major investigation was a former Council mining operation. Intelligence suggested the facility was still using forced labor despite the new regulations. Remember, we are not invaders, Yuna told her team. We are inspectors. If we find violations, we document them and bring them to the Assembly. No more unilateral action. They found violations. Workers from 3 species. Technically free but economically trapped. The facility owners had found loopholes in the new regulations. Yuna's report to the Assembly was detailed and damning. Within a month, new regulations closed the loopholes. The workers received compensation and job training. The facility owners faced sanctions. It was slow work, fixing centuries of systemic abuse. But it was happening. Merchant Captain Min Ho continued his trading routes, now without the burden of secret intelligence missions. His ship carried legitimate cargo and his crew could sleep without wondering if today would be the day their cover was blown. Kind of miss the excitement? His co-pilot joked. I don't, Min Ho replied. I like boring. Boring means people are not dying. They docked at a station that had once been Council territory. The station commander, a species humanity had freed from Council prisons, greeted them warmly. Captain Min Ho, I have cargo for Earth. Art pieces from our cultural renaissance. Your people showed us freedom. We want to share our culture in return. Min Ho accepted the cargo with gratitude. This was the galaxy he had fought for. Not human dominance, but mutual respect and trade between equals. On the station that had been Nexus Prime, now renamed Unity Station, the new assembly held its regular session. Ambassador Jiwon presided over debates about resource allocation, trade disputes, and diplomatic protocols. The Kelthian delegation claims the Vrexian mining operation violates ecological preservation standards, Jiwon announced. The Vrexian delegation disputes this claim. Both parties have agreed to mediation. It was tedious work, nothing like the dramatic confrontations during the war. But this was what peace looked like. Boring negotiations instead of battles. Complaints instead of casualties. Ambassador, there is a request for you to address the Assembly on the war's anniversary, an aide informed her. Jiwon nodded. 1 year since humanity had launched its retaliation. 1 year since the galaxy had changed forever. She prepared her speech carefully. It needed to honor those lost while inspiring those who remained. It needed to remember the cost of war while celebrating the achievement of peace. On the anniversary, representatives from 87 species filled Unity Station's main assembly hall. Human ships maintained positions nearby, not as threats but as protectors. The fleet that had broken the Council now served the assembly, defending all species equally. Jiwon stood at the speaker's platform, looking out at the diverse gathering. She saw former Council species sitting beside species they had once oppressed. She saw humans working with aliens toward common goals. She saw the future taking shape. 1 year ago, she began. Humanity faced a choice. We could accept injustice and live as lesser beings in a galaxy that did not value our lives. Or we could stand and fight for the dignity every species deserves. The hall was silent. We chose to fight. Not for conquest, not for revenge, but for justice. 500,000 humans died on 3 colony worlds. Their deaths could not be undone. But we could ensure they meant something. She paused, gathering her thoughts. Today we remember those we lost. We remember the colonists on Haven's Rest, New Sol, and Titan's Reach. We remember that their lives mattered, that every life matters regardless of species or power or wealth. Images appeared on displays throughout the hall. Faces of the lost. Humans, yes, but also Threxians, Kelthians, Vrexians, and dozens of other species killed by council aggression over the years. But we also celebrate what we built from tragedy. The old council ruled through fear and force. The new assembly governs through consensus and cooperation. It is not perfect. It will never be perfect. But it is just, and justice is worth any price. She looked directly at the camera, knowing her words would be broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. To those who consider testing our resolve, remember this: humanity did not seek conflict. But when conflict found us, we did not surrender. We stood, we fought, and we won. Not because we were the strongest, but because our cause was right. To those who seek peace, know this: humanity's strength is available to defend any species facing the exploitation we faced. We will not be the galaxy's tyrant, but we will be the galaxy's defender. She gestured to the gathered species. Look around this hall. Species who were enemies now work together. Species who were victims now have voices. This is what we fought for. This is what those 500,000 died for. Not human dominance, but universal dignity. The speech ended. The hall erupted in applause that lasted several minutes. Some species showed approval through sound, others through gesture or color change. But the message was universal. They understood and appreciated what humanity had achieved. After the ceremony, Captain Hyunwoo found Ji-won in a quiet corridor. That was a good speech, he said. It was necessary. Some species are already forgetting why we fought. They see the assembly's problems and miss the council's efficiency. Let them miss it. Those of us who remember will ensure we never return to that system. They stood together, watching ships dock and depart through the massive windows. Trade vessels, diplomatic shuttles, cultural exchange.